Hello and welcome to Indianomics. This is a special edition because it's a special guest. The person I'm going to speak with is Mr. Mundra, the Deputy Governor in charge of banking supervision at the Reserve Bank of India. Mr. Mundra, thank you very much for sparing me time because your plans for the banking sector and the resolution of difficult loans is what all Indian investors are watching, all foreign investors are watching, India Inc. is watching, bankers are watching. Well, first up, sir, this is the first interview I was trying to postpone because always I expect that today evening the Reserve Bank and the government are going to announce some big scheme or some small tweaks. Is something coming soon to speed up resolution?
Let me tell you, there are various possibilities and various formulations which have been under active discussion within RBI as well as with Government of India. And I think you people are aware of those things. Even some of the information I get from the flashes which you run about those activities. Before I say something on this, let me first make it very clear that, as I mentioned, there are several possibilities and formulations which are being discussed, but as of today, I can't say that either it is a settled view between the RBI and Government of India or even an institutional view within RBI. So what I am trying to tell you or going to tell you is some of the discussions which have taken place, which gives the possible indication of things to come, and maybe some of my individual or personal perceptions on various issues. So I think let's convey it very clearly and let us carry our conversation with that being very clear. Having said that, yes, there are several issues right from the various schemes which have been introduced, whether there is a need to modify any of those schemes or even introduce another scheme, whether the mechanism of CDR has to be viewed into in any modified way, the institution of oversight committee or any legal empowerment is required in that respect, functioning of JLF. So this is a whole range of issues which have been discussed, where the various viewpoints have emerged. Some of the viewpoints there had been finally a commonality of view. Some of the viewpoints are still at a distance from each other but continue to be discussed. So I think that is where we are.
Okay, so I'll tell you what hinders resolution. The expectation that a better CDR mechanism is coming. That is preventing bankers from taking any decision because let's wait and see. So is something coming soon?
I think it's quite a lengthy discourse, but if better CDR mechanism means a more relaxed or benign CDR mechanism, if that is what translates into the meaning, then I think that is not the case. Let me please.
I'm not sure that is the only point at the back of the banker's mind. When you say relaxed, you mean more time for provisioning, perhaps. But what they would like to know is under CDR, only 10% of debt can be converted into equity. Will you allow more? Will some specific rules be relaxed?
Okay, so I think let me go into little length on this because it is a very relevant question. At one extreme, the CDR mechanism, as you said, only 10% of debt can be converted. On the other side, there is S4A or SDR, which have a provision for the conversion to much higher. Now, from what I understand and what I have been hearing from the banking industry and the representations who have been coming, that 50% is something which may not be really possible in all the cases, and this can be sustainable portion can be even less than 50%. Okay, good point, acceptable point. The point is to be understood. Number one, the CDR mechanism, apart from those restrictions, but the main attraction, if you go by the hindsight at that point of time, that it was providing a kind of forbearance as far as the classification is concerned. That is no more there, and it is unlikely to come back. If we are talking about the reinvention of CDR mechanism with all those possibilities, that those are clearly not on the table. So that's the one thing. Now the the coming to the sustainable part, there can be two possibilities. You know, again, the wish list which keeps on coming. One possibility is that sustainability is to be assessed on the basis of a much distant future rather than an immediate future. And if you say that it is a much distant future, the viability would emerge, let us say, 2 years from now. It means cash flow would also get strengthened over a period of time. It means repayment should also be calibrated to the cash flow, and then this is the whole new structure which is to be put in place. I think you have tracked the banking system for long enough to understand what I am trying to tell. Again, I think that would not be a realistic thing to do. So that is the one possibility. Other possibility is that yes, you restrict the cash flow expectation to a reasonable period, which originally was more constrained, and on the demand of industry we already provided a slightly longer horizon, and decide the sustainable portion. I think the key point is, if the sustainable portion is below 50%, then what to do? Okay, I would believe is all right if the cash flow projections are not unrealistic, they pass the test, and sustainable portion is coming less than that, then it is for the lenders to go ahead with that prescription. Only added expectation in that, that what would that mean? That remaining portion has to be provided for. Now, expectation, if expectation is that remaining providing for is again spread over a very long period of time, then again that is not a right expectation. So I would say is a justified case which can be put up, but you have to clean it up with all those additives and all those expectations which are really not meeting the requirement of a prudential regulation, and then yes, everything can be discussed and worked out on the table.
So can we expect that you will tweak the S4A to allow more than 50% unsustainable debt?
So as I said, that this was something which was put up, and I have already explained, and as I mentioned, there is no institutional view right now at this point of time. But I have clearly spelled out that what is my perception around it, and to my mind, yes, it is something which can certainly be looked into in a realistic manner.
Okay. No, but the longer it takes for a word to come from the regulator, the longer will the resolution of some cases get postponed.
I can't disagree with you. It's a very valid point, but understand one thing. If this is to be done finally in a cleaned up version, as I am mentioning, one thing which it will entail, and I think you will be clear about it, that one thing which primarily it would entail is the availability of capital. So it means the engagement has to go beyond the lender and regulator, but also the owner, and that is where all the engagements were going on. And as I mentioned, that there had been quite meaningful, and I would say also the fruitful engagements. So, and you must have heard the statement which have been coming from the finance minister as well as the other concerned authorities in government also. So putting all that together, I would tend to think that yes, something we should be able to give a shape in near future.
Any timeline at all?
It's difficult to put a timeline. Let me be very frank about it.
Okay.
But it could be anything. It could be very near.
Okay.
But my sense, since there is so much of seriousness and engagement, and so much discussions have already taken place, it should not be something which will be indefinitely or very prolonged.
Okay. What about CDR tweaks? Do you see any chance of changing CDR rules?
Actually, let's understand one thing. As I mentioned, the CDR mechanism, as it was in the beginning, that you restructure, everything is flexible, there is a forbearance. Once you take out all those things, so what is left today is practically not a very elaborate mechanism. So in the change context, after that much has happened, so many other instruments have been issued, So right from 525, JLF, SDR, S4A. To my mind, today we should look CDR more as a monitoring platform. You need not really try to go and try to tweak the CDR mechanism.
Really?
Because you know, if you take out the 80% of original CDR mechanism and say I am retaining 20% only the shell and putting new 80% components, when you already have the other products already available. So the right thing would be to look at those things, and maybe, you know, like we discussed S4A something, if need some sort of realignment, that can be done. But important point, and which I personally feel very strongly, that under the JLF mechanism, if let's say hundreds of JLFs are functioning, right, and each JLF has to be administered by the respective lead banks, there would also be a rightful expectation that each JLF participation should be at a very higher level of management. Yes. These are all very right expectations, but how far they are practicable is a question, at least which I, having remained on the other side, can also probably feel more strongly. So my sense would be, rather than, you know, so many JLF sloshing around and all that, why it would be the right mechanism that JLF is the first institution. They bring an account, sit together, work out a broad plan, what is to be done. Once that has been sealed, signed and sealed within the given JLF mechanism, it should be handed over to the CDR Secretariat. For the monitoring, I think it will have many benefits. Number one, there would be economy of scale, there would be pooling of expertise, and more importantly, it will be completely arm's length monitoring. So that the, you know, the people who are creating the framework, they are not only monitoring. I think so that may necessarily mean that you strengthen the CDR Secretariat, maybe you bring some more enablers. Those are the you know, other enablement which are required. But I think that would be a right way to go.
So should we expect that? Should we expect that you will sit with the bankers and very soon come with a new set of rules? JLF? I
think every time we'll have to go back to my original, that many of these are still not an institutional views. And I said that some of these are, I feel, and of course I have been speaking for this, you know, that this is something which we should look into.
But have you been able to convince people at RBI and the bankers on the JLF issue? At least on this specific thing, will we expect some rules quickly?
At least whatever I have discussed, and both the constituencies, I have not found anyone to be completely unconvinced as such.
Okay. So we should expect changes to JLF, you collapsing all the JLFs into few rather than hundreds of JLFs very soon?
No, I think that is not the meaning. JLF would still remain as they have to, because there is each different set of lenders, different you know, lead banks are there. But the point is, JLF should evolve a framework which is within the given regulation. Once they have evolved a framework which is either dealing with resolution, recovery, rectification, whatever it is, then for further all monitoring, it should be handed over to the That is what, to my mind, would be a...
Is that imminent is what I'm asking.
As I said, this is something, again, till it becomes an institutional view, I can't say that it is imminent. But I have not found any serious discomfort or dispute about this kind of platform.
Now let me come to something on which everyone has a demand, oversight committee.
Yeah.
Are you looking, first of all, at giving it more legitimacy or legality and expanding its mandate?
See, I think the first relevant point is even the number of oversight committee. As you know, as of today, one oversight committee is functioning, and what we are discussing, if everything is put together, I think it would need more than one oversight committee if this is to be handled. So that is something which I think which has been discussed.
Is that coming?
So I think
Work in progress.
I think yes. So all of these you can take it as something which have been discussed, which is work in progress. But a institutional view or a common view, combined view is yet to emerge. The second point you talked about the legal empowerment. Of course, I think even within the existing banking regulation and RBI Act, there are enough empowerment available for RBI to give this kind of instruction. But I think a greater clarity can always be beneficial. Okay. And why I am telling this, because from the time these acts were enacted and subsequent to that, and more particularly in recent past, a number of acronyms which has been given in the financial sector were something which were not actually not known or not even understood. So you write an act in the context of the prevailing situation at point of time. So when so much has happened, I think it would be meaningful if even those provisions which are already existing are made a little bit more explicit. I think it serves two purposes. One is, of course, the clarity in the act, but also I think it brings a lot of assurances on the side of everyone who will be involved in this entire process. So that was something which we have been we have been suggesting, and I think government has also listened to us on that.
Okay, so we should expect that any increase of the oversight committee's number and empowerment will await legislative amendments of the acts?
I think that is something which probably because these are some of the technical and legal niceties, and I'm not qualified to really make an authoritative comment whether what kind of process it needs to go. Only thing I know that if there is a if both the parties are convinced, then I think it will be for the government to find an appropriate way to give it a shape.
Okay, but pending any legislative changes, RBI is not looking at doing anything about oversight committees?
See, if you look from practical way, it doesn't make a sense. You start, you take a view. Okay, we are starting this journey, and we expect to reach there in a final solution. And midway, you say, I will take a right turn and then come from that route again. So you start going to Churchgate and say, no, I'll come via the CST. It doesn't make a. I think it makes sense to if something is there, to stick to that.
I'm sorry, but again I have to ask you that for this legislative change, is there some timeline?
That timeline, obviously, you will have to travel to Delhi. No, I cannot. That
no,
timeline
I agree,
cannot
but
be.
Sir, you are into these discussions, so should we at least expect it?
No,
see, legislative things usually take time, and that is precious time lost in resolution of assets. There is a time value for that money.
No, I know, but I think there had been several instances in the past when there is a complete, agreement and acceptance of the government side. These processes can also run pretty fast.
Okay. Well, let me come to the issue of haircuts. Will the government or the RBI suggest something like a formula? Because that word formula does the rounds in conversation.
I think you are experienced enough to know. Rather, if I can ask you a counter question, that let us exchange the chair, and I ask you the same question. Do you think any such formula is possible?
I want you to bash up the idea. That's why I'm asking you.
What I'm trying to say, you can define a process, and all the efforts had been to define a process. You see, this number one, you are talking about variety of sectors. Within variety of sectors, you are talking about variety of companies, variety of equity and debt structure, the variety of products. So let me be very clear, no such omnibus formula is really possible. But yes, processes can be well defined, and you must have seen that all the efforts are directed in defining the process. So if there is a mechanism of JLF, there is a requirement of majority, there is a requirement of economic feasibility to be done, then this is to be further weighted at the level of oversight committee. If need be, oversight committee can be assisted by the credit rating agencies. If you are not comfortable with one credit rating agency, you can make it two credit rating agencies. So all those processes can be defined. And I think any proposal, once it goes through a regulatory broad structure, within that a very well defined process, then finally what emerges, I would tend to believe that it should be something quite realistic and sustainable.
Okay. So should we expect the credit rating agencies also to be included in the process?
I think that is what the thought is, and it should only strengthen the process. So yes.
Okay. At least that when should we expect in
No.
the form of rules? No, I mean, sir, resolutions are being held back in anticipation that something may come.
See, it is like putting a vehicle on the road and then commence the journey. Now you are asking me when the steering wheel will start traveling and other part will will start moving. That these are all interlinked components. I think even on a serious note, it is really now we are past that stage that we should again try to look at the issue in bits and pieces and components. It's better to have a whole mechanism with proper interlinkage in place and then put it in place.
Okay. So the oversight committee repeatedly apparently tells the bankers that S4A, at least their process is very clear, so we can compare. If you swerve outside it, we cannot vet the process. So, how would you answer that? Therefore, is an omnibus process coming?
No. I mean to say, what will happen as we have discussed S4A as it is now, even suppose there is and finally it is agreed that there can be a slightly revised version or modified version of S4A and all those other schemes which I was mentioning. Then to my mind, everything could be a input for OC to look into.
Okay.
But that will again enhance their universe substantially, even with the present universe, and which would again mean that there need to be more hands and brains working on that.
Fair enough. The markets are very much and the bankers are very much looking forward to that. Well, we need to take a break on that issue, but we have lots more questions for Mr. Mundra on a whole host of areas that come under his supervision. Back in a minute. Welcome back to Indianomics. We have been speaking with Mr. S. Mundra, the Deputy Governor who is in charge of banking supervision. Well, Mr. Mundra, we have discussed a lot about oversight committees and mechanisms of resolution. There is still a set of institutions, even banks, who refuse to give their assent after a whole lot of people have given assent. For instance, in the SR Oil case, we have not yet got, we understand, approval from LIC, approval from PFC, approval even from IDBI. Now, how can this be, this is not even a haircut case. How can this be speeded up? Any way you are looking at resolving it?
One, I would not like to comment on any individual cases, which I have always been telling you, but on a more general level or more philosophical level, and this is what I would say more as my individual perception, and which I have been mentioning earlier also. I think JLF mechanism as it stands today had all those provisions. Yes. The majority by number, the majority by amount, and which has also been modified from time to time as per the experience and representation of the banks. There is also disincentive for those who are not falling in line. All those things are there. But as it happens in most of the cases, that people have found the clever method of being compliant but non-compliant. Okay. I think what we need to address is this particular part, and for that, to my mind, there are two requirements. One is there has to be a clearly board mandated policy that if their institution is a part of JLF, and then if JLF mechanism is emerging, concurrence or non-concurrence with that JLF structure should be either vested in the executive power, or if board wants to retain the power, then board should be prepared to meet at much frequent basis, so that these things are not delayed. Number one, at that point of time. And number two requirement, that whatever structure has emerged has to be either clear yes or clear no. It cannot be a yes with rider.
Okay.
If I think if these two things are put in place, I think most of the issues which we are discussing today may be addressed.
Who will put this in place? RBI has to, no?
Yeah, RBI has to put in place. So that is why an institutional view has to emerge on this.
Okay.
And there had been this also had been one of the point of discussion.
Okay. So let me get away from the NPA issue, because there's so much.
Yes, I'll also be happy and relieved that.
And we will try and revisit if we have time. But let me come to the other issues that are on the table, which is what you all, a recent circular that you all have given. Even for standard assets where there is a sign of stress, the board should put in a policy of higher provisioning.
Yeah.
Now, this obviously is preparing the banks for IFRS 9. Are we on track for IFRS 9 from April 2018?
Yes, till it is changed, it remains.
Okay.
So it is there. And I think circular itself is also quite clear in mentioning that whatever those provisions and the present rule-based regulations are prescribed are only minimum enough. It will always be good for the banks to proactively look beyond that. So that is what it is intended to be.
But IFRS 9 needs a lot more. So should we expect more circulars to ensure that bankers get ready for IFRS 9 April 18?
I think it has been a work in progress for a long time. So we can trace our journey back to right from 2015 with AQR, with the recognition of banks. So you would see that during this course of last 2 years, the provision level has already built up. Yeah. That was also in a sense preparing the system to move towards the new accounting standard. Plus, of course, this is one additional thing which has been. So, and I know that some of the banks, even within that, had already taken certain higher percentage. Some of the banks, for example, at substandard level, where the regulation prescribed 15%, but they have been doing 20%. Yes. So some of these resilience were already being built in. So I think what is important is to very clearly communicate. Maybe it's kind of a again and again awakening call. Not that the banks are not aware of this requirement, not that banks are not aware that they have to move to the new accounting standard. But I think these are a kind of, I would say, a positive nudging which you can do. Okay. So if someone has slightly got forgetful, again gets a wake-up call.
But in all this, retained profits will fall because you have to provide more. So capital again becomes an issue. What are the discussions with the government on capital? Are they going to provide more, or is there a serious thought about recapitalization bonds?
See, whichever way you look at it, ultimately all it boils down to the requirement of capital, which is not negotiable. And see, and I think government is quite clear. There had been a lot of discussions, a lot of data sharing on this, and you must have seen that Finance Minister had also not once but several times he has mentioned that if there is a need, government would provide the capital. But what we have to understand that only government providing the capital is not the only thing. Capital has to come, that is very clear, but capital can come from several sides. And to my mind, rather than always just focusing that government has to put a lot of money, would not be the right thing to do. So capital, see, on very fundamental level, there are two ways. Either capital can be augmented or capital can be conserved. Now, individual institutions first have to take that view that how much they can expect the augmentation capital and how much they can look into their business to conserve the capital. Once that is done, for augmentation, yes, the majority owner has to provide, other owners can provide, you can dispose of your non-core assets, you can try to exit from some of the business lines. So I think each bank will have to look at all the possibilities and then accordingly decide.
But recap bonds are not discussed?
At least I am not aware of any such discussion if they have taken place.
Now the other way in which the government has, or even in fact the Reserve Bank in the prompt and corrective action says, for the weakest of banks you will recommend even amalgamation. But is there an amalgamator, someone who can accept an IOB?
If you look at the PCA framework, there are two parts of it. One is the mandatory action and other are the discretionary action. Some of these are discretionary action. If it is put there, it means not necessarily that this is the only thing which is to be done, but yes, it is something which is very much on the card. So I think these things will depend on very individual cases and how the circumstances do take place. There had been instances of amalgamation in Indian banking system in the past. It's not that it is for the first time. And even otherwise, on a more general and philosophical level, we are talking about the consolidation in the industry. So, I think within that broad framework, all the possibilities should be taken as being available and not discarded.
Okay, but should we expect consolidation anytime soon? Say, in this year, something like that?
I think you demand timeline for everything. Right now one consolidation is going on.
Yes.
You know. And I think you have also witnessed that this consolidation, coming into shape, it takes its own course of time. And that too where it was a case which was very different. It was a kind of half consolidated entries to be fully consolidated. So I think we have to be realistic in that perspective.
Okay.
But what is important is to decide a broad framework, firm up the mind. Once you do that, then other things are a matter of detail, which can take care of themselves.
In 2005, the breaking story was Bank of India and Union Bank. Remember,
I know.
Varghese and Venugopal have just met.
I know.
That used to be the flash.
I know.
So that's why, I mean, some homework has been done. That's why I'm asking you if something can be expected sooner rather than later.
No, that is why that phrase was invented. No, there are many a slip between the cup and the lip.
Okay.
That you can never.
Okay. Well, sir, let me come to other issues which, broadly is in the Reserve Bank's area. One question we forgot in the credit policy altogether. How much money came back? The old notes. When will we get to know?
I think other day also this question was asked to me somewhere and I said it has become a stale question. See, what
it takes only one flash, sir, to make it a fresh
No, I know, but to get everyone a right perspective, what actually now you need to look at it, the four things together. Is not only that what kind of money has come back, how much has come into the formal banking sector, not only come back but which has remained, which can be called as sustainable, which will have its own multiplier impact, how much it has helped in expanding the tax base and how much it has helped to move towards the digitization. So is a large universe which needs to be collated. And we are seriously working on that. The moment we are ready, we will come to you with a total picture, all the four components,
but
not one.
It's taking quite long. Should we expect again that anytime?
No, window itself is open up to June,
okay. So we should expect only after June 30th.
Yeah, and this is a massive work.
Okay, but okay, let me. I have exhausted my non-NPA questions for now. So let me come back to the NPA. I'll tell you why I'm coming back. When it comes to settling a steel company or resolving, even say for that matter, a power company, there is always a tussle between whether it should be sold off or whether the existing management should be given. very often the existing management asks for a lower haircut and therefore it is preferred. Is there any way this will be resolved, that you ask people to, do some bids or something like that? Open bid.
One thing is very important is about the history of individual cases. One has to be that realization will come when you are talking about the forensic audit and you are talking about everything. So one clear separation is whether it was a case of circumstantial grief or it was a something other than that. So that is the first dividing point. There I think there is nothing to discuss and decide. If these were the circumstances and the policy issues and all that, then the right process could be about the arriving at a fair valuation, which becomes the floor price. Okay, and then every option can be open.
Okay. Well, a lot of cases are stuck in that, and that's why I thought maybe if you would have a view between a new buyer who seems to be at a disadvantage because the old fellow is always offering a slightly more attractive haircut, and therefore the bankers have an attraction to him.
Yeah, but now it has to be judged by all the parameters. That is not something. One thing is now quite behind us. Any measure which is only intended to postpone the problem or the kick the can that will not be acceptable. Okay. And I think everyone has become wiser by the experience. Okay. All borrowers, lenders, regulators, owners.
Regulators. So should we expect that something the omnibus changes to NPA resolution will come before July, before you retire? Or will you also kick the can?
What it has to do with the individual's retirement. These are institutional.
A lot of bank chairmen don't want to put their sign to the haircut. So it should not happen that Mr. Mundra doesn't want to sign.
I think if that would have been the case, I think we would not have hesitated from doing whatever has been done right from the AQR. So, if still you can ask that question, then I will ask you to do some serious introspection.
I was just trying to get a timeline from you in some fashion or the other. So finally,
these are not but Lata, these are not the individual endeavors. You will understand. I think you will understand more than anyone else.
No, it is institutional. I was just trying to get a timeline from you before I end the interview. Finally, on prompt corrective action. So it is a fairly relaxed, timetable or categorizing. 6% is also a very large net NPA. 6 to 9, 9 to 12, over 12. Do you see the Reserve Bank bringing this down in course of time? That the prompt corrective action comes probably at 4 or earlier once this hump is over.
I think it's a good beginning. And see, we have to strike a good balance between the what point of institutional condition we are standing. Again, I would repeat that favorite phrase. It should not ultimately happen so that the operational is successful and patient is dead.
Okay.
Then, so we have to make a beginning. We have made a beginning, and any fine tuning, any course correction is always possible. This is what exactly you do. No, you start first administering some vitamins. As the patient is gaining strength, maybe you go for some more severe treatment. So that should be the approach.
Mr. Mundra, it was a pleasure speaking with you. Thank you very much for your patience. I'm sure a lot of questions have been answered, and the next step, of course, is to wait for more steps from the government and the Reserve.
Pleasure for me also, as always.
Thank you, sir.